Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do a Friday Reads video where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about any bookish things that have gone on during the week. Once again, I'm kind of hoping that this is going to be a shorter one, or at least that's my plan, but usually whenever I say that, I end up running my mouth for 30 minutes. We'll see how this goes. So if you would rather skip over the chatty part in the beginning, there will be a timestamp in the description box down below. And you can jump right to the Friday Reads part of the video. I did only finish one book this week, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We'll get into it. Most of it has to do with stress. If you have paid attention to the news in the United States, it's been a week. It's very stressful. I'm really concerned about the upcoming election. I know a lot of other people are from comments on my last Friday Reads, which will be linked down below, and all of that stuff. And a lot of that played out in my reading. And I also haven't really engaged with the news all that much. Like, the big book news this week is that there is a bit of a controversy about a popular author. I haven't even really looked into it. I have only read one book by that author anyway. So if you know it, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't feel like it's something I am qualified to talk about. Again, I've only read one of that author's books, and I haven't even looked into the circumstances. So that feels like the thing everybody's talking about, because when I open threads, 1 out of 3 posts is about that, but I don't really know much about it. So if you know, you know, and I will let anybody who has an opinion about that, you can leave it in the comment section down below. I just really haven't engaged with news in general this week. And again, that really played out in my reading because I only finished one book, and it was a bit of an escapist book. And we'll talk about that when we get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video. I am hoping that this is going to be a short video because I fell behind this week. I had been hoping that I was going to have more free time on Monday and Tuesday, but work did the work thing, and I ended up not really having any free time at all. So I didn't manage to film videos early like I had been hoping, and I had been hoping that I would be able to film this video on Wednesday, actually, and that just didn't happen because on Wednesday I spent what time I had filming my most anticipated books for the rest of 2024, which I did manage to get posted on Thursday, and it will be linked down below if you haven't seen it. I've really enjoyed the conversation from people about which of those books they are interested in and which books are not on the list that they are interested in. And I'm hoping that this coming Thursday, I'll have my follow-up video, which is going to be the one about books that other people might be more interested in than me, but I'm just feeling like I might take a pass on. So that will hopefully be coming on Thursday. I had also wanted to film the best books of 2024 so far with Joel, and we only had time to film one video last Sunday, and we figured we should do the reading wrap up for June. So that's what we did. And then Joel unexpectedly had to travel on Monday and Tuesday and then come home on Wednesday. So I was a little busy Monday, Tuesday, and then he wasn't there anyway. So we have not filmed our best books of 2024 so far yet. So we're probably going to film it this weekend, and then hopefully I will be able to get it edited for Tuesday. I'm not thinking I'll be able to turn around and get it done on Monday. So stay tuned. Hopefully Tuesday you'll be getting our best books of 2024 so far. And actually, it kind of works out that it's a week later than we had been planning to film it, because Joel might have a book that he just finished and wants to add to his top 10 or whatever number we ultimately go with for our list. So stay tuned for all of that. Today, the day I'm filming this, July 5th, is my wedding anniversary. So of course I am wearing one of my t-shirts that I got when Joel and I were in Canada last year. We got married on Lake Moraine in the Canadian Rockies. So for our 10th anniversary, we went back, and that was delightful. We hadn't been back since the wedding. And I got this t-shirt when we were on Moraine because you have to plan your trip there now, and I don't want to get bogged down into a whole thing, but things have really changed since the pandemic. The level of tourism has gone skyrocketing, so they manage how many people can be there at a time, and you have to book a bus that will take you to the lake. You can't just go there. So it was our only day that we were going to be able to be there, and we really wanted to get in a canoe, and it was raining or just windy enough that they weren't allowing canoes out, and we've never been able to get in the canoes. So I got this t-shirt because it has the canoe, and it was kind of like, well, this is something that we've always wanted to do here, and we haven't been able to. And then right after we got the t-shirts, they opened the lake, and we did get to canoe, and it was magical. So anyway, happy anniversary to Joel. He is actually out running an errand with Teddy. So that's why Teddy is not here, and that's why he's not here. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about before we get into the Friday Reads portion of the video is sort of a jump off from the conversation that I had in my Friday Reads video last week, which was about politics and the election and the importance of voting. And I am once again going to have a link to an website that will allow you to register to vote or help you register to vote or check your registration status. I checked my registration status last week. It took like a minute to do it. And there's like a drop-down menu that will help you navigate to your state. It's really cool. And if you are eligible to vote but are not registered, register to vote. If you are eligible to vote and you get registered to vote or you are registered to vote, it is so important that you vote. And a lot has happened in the news since last week. And, you know, I would love to encourage people to pick the candidate that they most closely align with, but it feels like you're much more likely to pick a party these days in the United States. And I would just encourage you to remember that one party in this election talks a lot about freedom and liberty and all of that stuff, but they actually want to ban books. They want to criminalize members of the LGBTQ plus community. And they tried to steal the last election, and they want to teach religion in schools. You know, religion is fine. Don't try to force it on other people is my whole thing. And that actually is something that this country was founded on. You know, it's actually, it is foundational to the United States as it is today. It's why a lot of Europeans came over to this country and stole it from the natives. But you've read a book, you know how American history works. Just remember, there's one party that wants to do all of that. So if you feel disengaged from this election and if you feel disengaged from the choices that you have, just remember, you are voting against book banning. You're voting against criminalizing queer people. You're voting for women's rights. You're voting against religious oppression, and you're voting against fascism. You know, those are all really important things, and you have to show up and you have to vote for that. And if you have concerns about Biden, remember, he has a whole administration around him. I think his administration is good. Kamala Harris is right there as VP. So there could be Supreme Court justices on the line. You need to show up. You need to vote. And it's really important. It just is. And the reason I wanted to bring it up again is because it's not just the presidential race. You need to pay attention to the other races as well. Like in the state of Montana, where I live, we are hoping that we will be able to get a Democratic governor in because the current governor is a Republican and a mess and has been criminalizing transgender people, taken away protections against discrimination for queer people, and has done a lot of terrible things. So it's important to vote, and to vote in every race. Pay attention to your race for Senate and Congress. Get to know who these candidates are. If you know someone who knows who like judicial nominees or school board nominees are, you know, don't skimp on those, because a lot of the time when Joel and I start to do research, you'll find that somebody who's running for like the school board wants to ban books, and they have freely posted about that online. So you don't want those people on your school board. So you have to pay attention to every race. You need to show up and vote for every category. It's really important, not just the presidential race. And if you're eligible to vote and you don't vote, I don't know what to say to you, because these are things that are important. If it doesn't feel important to you, think about people in your life who it is important to. I'm sure you know a woman or a queer person or anybody, an immigrant. You know people who would find it incredibly important. So that's that. Let's get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video before I stress myself out all over again. So I did finish only one book. It's not actually a book I have here. I finished A Dash of Salt and Pepper by Kosoko Jackson. Now, earlier in the week, I had actually been thinking I was going to read a different book on audio, and this ended up being a sort of last minute substitute. I can't remember where I heard about this book now, but I saw it, I read the premise of it, and it immediately sounded interesting to me. So I had put a hold on Libby, and it became available on Sunday or Monday. And it actually kind of lined up immediately with like, I feel so stressed. A queer romance book that involves food seems like exactly what I need right now. So I kind of pushed the other audiobook I had been thinking about to the side. It's something I have access to regularly, so it's not like gone. I didn't miss out on it, and went with the one that I got through the library through the Libby app. And by the way, the Libby app, really great way to find audiobooks. It supports your local library, which is another good thing to do. So anyway, A Dash of Salt and Pepper. You have two men, Logan and Xavier. Xavier is the protagonist. It does not do that thing where it goes back and forth between the characters' perspectives, and I actually found that really refreshing. You really just stay with Xavier the whole book, and again, I just found that kind of refreshing because that back and forth has become so omnipresent in romance books that it almost feels predictable at this point. It's kind of nice that you don't get Logan's perspective. You don't necessarily know what he's thinking or where he's coming from some of the time. Anyway, Xavier is a black man who lives in Harper's Cove, Maine. His parents had originally lived in a bigger city, and they relocated to Harper's Cove because they wanted him to have that kind of small town experience and have a place where he could grow up and thrive outside of a big city and big city pressures. And then Xavier kind of ended up falling into a lot of those pressures anyway. He left for college. He went to business school. He has all of these ambitions for himself. He really feels that pressure to perform that a lot of minorities can feel, because if you really fall down that rabbit hole, you will feel like you need to be perfect all of the time. And that is Xavier. And he's a little self-involved. He's a little sarcastic. He's a lot sarcastic all the time. And he is sort of reeling from a quick succession of failures. He lost his job because the startup he was working for folded. He had applied for a prestigious fellowship in Berlin and was rejected. And then his boyfriend dumped him after the first two things because it didn't feel like they were on the same page anymore, which is code for like, you seem like you're failing at life and I'm on the way up. So he got dumped. So he ended up back in his parents' house and is licking his wounds from this because he has identified himself so strictly by his successes and failures that this kind of hurts a lot. And Logan is a man who has a teenage daughter and lives in Harper's Cove, owns a restaurant called The Wharf. It's a seafood restaurant. And he ends up hiring Xavier as a prep cook because his daughter has been sort of filling in the restaurant, and obviously that is not something that is sustainable or can last much longer. So Xavier ends up working in the restaurant, and of course there's immediate chemistry. It is a little bit like the first time they meet, they clash a little bit. It's one of those, and then as they get to know each other, chemistry begins to develop. And it's a really cute and sweet relationship. I think I have pretty quickly narrowed in on the fact that I think I really respond to romance stories where the protagonists have this really great connection and build a trusting and healthy relationship where they communicate what they're struggling with each other. Like, that is apparently my thing, and this book has that. Think of like Alison Cochrane. If you like The Charm Offensive, you'll probably like A Dash of Salt and Pepper. It has that same sort of vibe and connection between the characters where, one of them has trust issues and has to kind of deal with that in order to be with another person. And then you have Xavier, who isn't sure that he wants to stay in Harper's Cove. Of course, there's a complication that happens earlier in the book where the fellowship in Berlin reaches out and they are actually interested in potentially letting him in. So he has to decide if he really wants to run back into the big city life that he had found so important for so long, or if there's more to this small town that he has been sort of overlooking over time. And they have to reckon with those things over the course of the book. It's really cute. I will say, I've actually gotten a bunch of comments lately, a couple, like a small handful of comments lately, because usually I will comment on like the spice level of a book, especially when there's a romance involved. And the reason I do that is because people genuinely do ask. And for those people who do have concerns about spice level in a book, it's good to know these things. It's kind of like having a trigger warning in a book before you go in. Like if a dog dies in a book, I want to know, because odds are I won't want to read that book. So if it's something you're really not into, going into a romance, it's kind of good to know if there's a lot of it. And I will say, I thought this was going to be a book that didn't have any spice at all. Like, there would be flirtation and sort of discussion, but not an actual scene. And then there is eventually an entire chapter that is spice. But I would say if it's a concern for you, it's really easy, or it would be really easy to just skip that chapter and go to the next one. So for people who do find that to be a concern, I'm here to help. And hopefully that is useful information for you. Like, there is a chapter with a lot of spice, but it would be really easy to just skip over it and focus on the rest, because the rest is really cute. Like I said, if you like Alison Cochrane, I think this would be a good book for you. I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm glad that I did that. And that's the only book I finished. And really, it was just because it provided that good level of escapism, and it really absorbed all of my reading time. Anytime I wanted to get away from like the news or thought about reading, I just wanted to spend time in this world and with these characters. I thought they were really interesting people, and their connection was kind of cute and sweet. And it gave me all of those cinnamon bun vibes that I needed this week, given the news. The downside of that is that I didn't spend a lot of time with Hombrecito by Santiago Jose Sanchez. This is a book that I've really been looking forward to, and I am only 45 pages into it. And I really just read those 45 pages, I think, on Saturday and Sunday, or Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember which, because it's been almost a week at this point. So I haven't picked this book up since the work week actually started, and that is pretty directly because once the work week got started, the news cycle just kind of blew up and started stressing me out a little bit. And it's not that I was not liking the book. It's not that there's a lot that's stressful in the book. It's just that I needed that escapism that A Dash of Salt and Pepper was providing. So I really leaned heavily in that direction at the expense of Hombrecito. And I want to get back to it, because I was really liking this. The first 45 pages were great. But I'm going to see how it goes over the weekend. I think I'm going to read... So let's jump to another book for a second. I think over the weekend, I am going to allow myself to have another little cinnamon bun moment with Check Please, Volume 1, Hockey by Ngozi Ukazu, because I think this is going to help me sort of climb out of this ball of stress that I have been living in, basically, for the past week. And I think this will read very quickly. It's less than 200 pages, and it's a graphic novel about a college hockey player. He was a figure skater. Now he plays hockey. He also loves pastry. So it seems really like it's going to be really cute. So I'm going to allow myself to do that over the weekend. And actually, now that I think about it, I actually finished 2 books this week. I read Heartstopper Volume 4. Whoops. So Teddy actually just wandered in. I guess he's back from his adventure with Joel. They had gone out to run an errand, so Teddy's now asleep on the floor with me. But yeah, I read Heartstopper Volume 4. I think I forgot that I read it this week because I included it in my wrap-up for the month of June. I managed to finish it before the month actually ended. So I think I'll do Check Please, and then I'm going to try again with Hombrecito and see how that goes. And if I really can't make any headway in this book, I might put it aside for now and focus on something that's going to help me escape my anxious brain a little more. And I don't know what that would be. So we'll see how that goes. But I am intending to continue reading this because I was really enjoying it, and I have been looking forward to it. So hopefully once I read Check Please, I'll be ready to dive back into these waters. I will say I did decide I am not going to be reading what I'd rather not think about right now, because it was going to be a tough sell with my mental emotional state right now, because it's, for everything I've heard, it's a very sad book. And I don't think I can do that right now. So I'm going to return that to the library and maybe revisit it when I'm a little less stressed. But anyway, I think that's where we're going to stop for now, because that's everything I've read this week. I can't believe I forgot Heartstopper Volume 4. I really think because I read it right at the tail end of June, it just slipped my mind. But I did read it, and it was as enjoyable as all of the others. So those are the books I've read, and I'm going to go celebrate my anniversary with Joel. So I'd love to hear what you've been reading and loving this week. Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.